Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Well, it appears it was true. Like I said, they probably had plenty of access to the licensing. They actually did put Godzilla in Ikoria, which is awesome. Yeah, I love the Godzilla movies growing up, and I even like the newer Godzilla movies. I think they're really cool. I've always just liked Godzilla. I think it's a fun thing. It was entertaining, you know. Even the cheesy old Japanese movies were still pretty entertaining, even with the bad subtitles and the bad, you know, American actors trying to do the voicings in English over top of the Japanese actors. So they were just classic old movies. Godzilla's a blast. There's a lot of giant creatures, obviously, in the Godzilla movies, and that's what Ikoria is all about. So I think it's a really, really cool crossover. It's a little zany how they did it, but it's pretty cool. Now, you'll see on this card, this is one of the releases. This is actually the buy a box promo card that's going to come with the first boxes, or at least one of the possible buy a box. I don't know if they're going to do multiples or if this is going to be the only one, but I don't know if you can see on mine down here, but it does say buy a box underneath. I know my camera setup's not the greatest. I don't really have the record the screen and audio type thing like a lot of the other content creators do set up yet. I'll figure that out one of these days when I have a little extra time. But so I'm gonna do my best here. Just got my camera in front of my laptop, so where I've downloaded the pictures of a lot of the new cards, so we can go over some of the new cards and the new mechanics, which are very similar to pretty much what I was thinking, except the mutate actually a bit cooler than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't really sure what they were going to do with that, but it's pretty cool. Now this is one of the alternate, as you can see, extended art kind of cards. Now the art doesn't go all the way out to the edge. There is a black border, but there's no border in the sides here. So it's kind of a cool card. I would think Godzilla would be a little bit stronger, you know, a little bit larger. But he's a 5-drop 7/3 with trample. Legendary creature, obviously. Dinosaur, which, you know, makes sense. Even though he's technically supposed to be a mutated lizard from nuclear fallout. Anyway, so he's got trample, 7/3, lethal damage dealt to creatures you control is determined by their power rather than their toughness. That's a pretty cool feature. So, you know, like, especially if you're using a lot of, this is green or red, you're using a lot of those red cards from like Theros Beyond Death that are like, you know, 5 power and 1 toughness that have to attack every turn. When they take damage, they actually are going to take it according to their power, so they're going to have a lot more strength. So they're going to last a lot longer out there. They're not going to be such sitting ducks anymore. So with this guy on the board, so that's pretty awesome. Godzilla, he's awesome creature, and it does kind of fit in with kind of how Godzilla was. He did get beat up a lot in the movies. If you watch the movies, he did get especially when he was fighting other creatures, he got beat down pretty bad. So he didn't have a lot of toughness actually, but he was really strong and real determined, and he'd usually get up and fight to the last breath there at the end and end up winning, you know, because he's just really super strong, even though he had the little T-Rex arms. But so this one's actually named Godzilla King of Monsters, but underneath it's Zolortha Strength Incarnate is kind of his subtitle. And I've noticed that there's actually cards that, oops. All right, ruining the video already. There's actually cards, I gotta watch that. There's actually cards that will have the Zolortha Strength Incarnate as the title. Now, I'm not sure if those are going to be arena cards or whatever. It's still all a little foggy with all the new information that just came out today with all this. But it is confirmed. Godzilla is in Ikoria, which is really cool. I think it's an awesome thing. Let me know what you guys think about it. Now, this one is a mythic, but there's also, we'll get to it a little bit later. I think I've got it in here. There's an uncommon Godzilla with the full art type setup too, which is very weird. All right, next up we got the Vadrock Apex of Thunder. Now this is one of the ones with Mutate. So how the Mutate mechanic works is you've got a Mutate cost that's like an alternate casting cost for the card. Now, this one, his regular standard cost is a white, a red, and a blue. And he's a 3/3 flying first strike, right? And it says, whenever this creature mutates, you may cast target non-creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its cost. Its mana cost, which is amazing. Enters the battlefield trigger to begin with, but it only works when he mutates, but that's still really awesome. Now his mutate cost is 2 red and a hybrid white or blue and 1 colorless. And how mutate works is if you cast this spell for its mutate cost, put it over or under target non-human creature you own, and they mutate into the creature on the top plus all the abilities on the bottom. So let's say, all right, I just got a couple cards off to the side here. And I'm bumping the camera. Sorry, making you guys dizzy. So let's say you got these two creatures, right? You got a Spike Feeder and an Undead War Chief. So when you mutate, you can choose to either put the Spike Feeder on top, and it's the Spike Feeder creature, but he has all the abilities of the Undead War Chief. So it's a Spike Feeder, but it also gives zombie spells you play 1 less to play, and zombies you control +2/+1. So his power and toughness and everything will be the Spike Feeders plus the abilities there, but he also has these abilities. So he becomes like pretty much a double creature. Or you can mutate it the other way. You could have the Undead War Chief now have the counter abilities and the removal 1/1 counter and gain 2 life and stuff like that. So that's how it looks like the mutate works, is you can either choose to have this creature with these abilities or this creature with these abilities. So it's pretty awesome. There's going to be a lot of really cool combos, and there's going to be a lot of hijinks around this feature, I believe. I think there's going to be some pretty crazy stuff, especially once these cards start finding their way into standard and modern and stuff, where they got a much bigger card draw pull to pull from, so you can really put some wacky combos together. I see some infinite combos happening with this mutate ability. It just looks like it's ripe for shenanigans. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So he's one of our legendary creatures, Elemental Dinosaur Cat. Okay, they put a lot of I've noticed a lot of these creatures have a lot of keywords on them. A lot of creature types, so there's going to be a pretty broad range of stuff that this set can do, I think, because of that. Snapdax, Apex of the Hunt. 1 black, 1 white, 1 red, 1 colorless. He's a 3/5 double strike. Whenever this creature mutates, it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, and you gain 4 life. That's pretty brutal. His mutate cost is 2 white and a hybrid red or black, and 2 colorless. So if you're playing a black and red deck, you can play this creature. You just can't cast them as standard. You can only mutate them. Or a white and black deck, same thing. So white and red or white and black, you can put this creature in the deck, but you can't hardcast them. You can only mutate them, unless, of course, you got some kind of mana ramp that'll give you mana of any color, so you can actually hardcast them. But I see a lot of these creatures getting in decks that they aren't even able to hardcast them. They just use them for mutate, because this thing's going to give anything double strike, plus it's a 4 damage to a target creature or planeswalker, and you gain 4 life spell on top of that. So that's pretty good. So he's a Dinosaur Cat Nightmare, which kind of sounds like my cat. He's like 22 pounds, all black, total nightmare, complete spoil brat. Anyway, moving on. So next up we got Luminous Brood Moth. Now I couldn't find the picture that I could slap in here real quick, but Mothra from the Godzilla movies is also a card that I've seen in some of the spoilers that's related to this card. In fact, I believe it's actually the same casting costs and the same abilities, but it's actually a Mothra, and it's like a full art card. So pretty cool, pretty weird. Now this one I've noticed is number 318, even though I think there's only 274 cards in the set. So this is probably from one of the extra sets, or one of the commander decks or something. This is going to be from something. And that may be, come to think of it, that may be why there's several cards that are the exact same but with different names. So they can use the same card twice in the commander decks, but technically they're different cards. I call it a hunch. That could be the why they did this. There may be, so you may get Mothra and the Luminous Brood Moth in the commander decks together. So could be because they're the same cost, same power and toughness, same flying, same whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. So this is the mechanic I talked about in one of my videos, one of my sorting and rambling videos here recently when we were talking about the mechanics, and I was talking about how there's going to be counter cards in the packs that, or they're going to be the punch cards where you can punch out the counters. So there's going to be counters for everything. Counters for flying, counters for death touch, counters for menace, counters for reach, counters for, I mean, you name it. Pretty much every ability is going to have a counter for it that you can put on these creatures. And we'll get into some other creatures that are very much like this, to where they have an ability that will put counters on themselves or other creatures. So that's a really cool mechanic that's going to be in this set. So technically there's actually 3 mechanics. 3, you can't see my hand there. 3 mechanics in this new set. So there's the counters, there's the mutate, and then there's companion, which we're going to get into whenever we find a card that's got companion on. But first, we got to check out Vivian, who apparently had some major reconstructive surgery on her ears because she no longer is an elf. Apparently, Vivian is not an elf anymore. Didn't she have the pointy elf ears before? I mean, she does not have them now. She's got regular human ears now. So, very weird. I'm not sure, that's not a great picture, so I'm not sure how well you can read it, but her abilities are, you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. So, you're going to pretty much you're going to be able to look at the top card of your library, and if it's a creature spell, you can cast it right off the top of your deck, which is pretty awesome. Her +1 is create a 3/3 green beast creature token. Put your choice of a vigilance counter, a reach counter, or a trample counter on it. That is pretty cool. So you get a 3/3, and depending on where you're at in your gameplay and what creatures your opponent has, you can decide whether you want to give that creature vigilance, reach, or trample. So if you got a flyer giving you problems, you can give them reach. If their opponent's got a bunch of little 1/1s, you can give them trample, so you can trample over for damage. Or if you feel you need to be able to attack and defend, you can give a vigilance. So pretty awesome feature. She starts with just 3 loyalty counters, but that +1 is the 3/3 green beast token. But then her -2 is when you cast your next creature spell this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser converted mana or lower converted mana cost, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. So I see lots of shenanigans with Vivian because you can combo out with this. You can totally cast a creature, knock her -2, cast a creature that's one part of a combo, and then search your library for the other part of the combo and put it directly on the battlefield for just 2 loyalty counters. That's amazing. You can do it the turn she comes out. You can combo out. So pretty awesome. Vivian's gonna probably be the first one to get banned. Vivian's got really cool possibilities with that -2 there. All right, moving on. Here's our other brand new Planeswalker, Lucca Coppercoat Outcast. Now he's a red Planeswalker, and he's got a very large tiger hanging out with him. But so this one's really hard to read, so forgive me if this takes a second. So his +1 is exile the top 3 cards of your library. Creature cards exiled this way gain, you may cast this card from exile as long as you control a Lucca Planeswalker. So as long as he's on the battlefield, you exile the top 3 cards, and any creatures that were in those top 3, you can cast them at any of your turns, any of your main phases, as long as Lucca's still in play. So his -2 is exile target creature you control, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card with a higher converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So that's pretty awesome. You can have a 1-drop out there. You can exile him and then reveal cards from the top of your library until you find any other creature that costs more and put it directly on the battlefield. That's pretty, again, lots of room for shenanigans there. You can turn a 1-drop into a 9-drop. Just pow. There you go. So, pretty awesome. That's just a -2, and he comes in with 5 loyalty counters, so you can do that first turn. His -7 is every creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. I can see this guy being a commander in a lot of commander decks in the near future. I mean, this guy is, yeah. So you only have to do his +1 twice, and then you can do the -7. And if you got 20 power worth of creatures out there, you do 20 to every single opponent. Pretty awesome. And you don't even have to sacrifice your creatures to do that. They just automatically do it to every opponent. So pretty awesome Planeswalker for a new Planeswalker. He's a little expensive. He does cost 5 to get out, but at least he's monocolor. He's not like 16 colors to try and cast him out there. I know there's only 5. Technically 6. If you want to count that colorless square cost thing that they did that failed, that they don't support anymore. So it makes it impossible to play those old cards. Moving on. Next up, we got the Dinosaur Hippo. The Dino Hippo. Garuda, the Macrophage. He's hybrid blue and green for 2 and then 3 colorless. Now, this is the first one that's got Companion. So, Companion is basically a set of guidelines for your deck. His companion is your starting deck contains only cards with converted mana cost 3 or greater and land cards. So basically, if you have your deck built and there's no 2-drops or 1-drops, it's all converted mana cost 3 or greater and land cards, you can cast this guy once from outside the game. It doesn't say that on this particular card, but we'll see that on some of the other companion cards where they've got less text and they actually put that on there. So companion means you can cast the creature one time from outside the game. So you can have this guy in your sideboard, and as long as your deck is all converted mana cost 3 or greater and land cards, you can cast him from your sideboard onto the game, or onto the battlefield. When Garuda, the Macrophage, enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other permanent you control with converted mana cost 3 or greater. So, that means that if you built the deck to where you can cast him from your sideboard, or from outside the game if you're playing tabletop, so every card in your deck is going to be a 3 mana cost or greater. So pretty much every permanent you have out at the time that you cast him, you're going to draw a card for. So that's pretty cool. He's a little bit pricey. He's a 5-drop, 5/4, but he doesn't take up space in your deck. You can put him in your sideboard, and you can cast him from your sideboard with the companion. He is legendary, so you can only have one out at a time. But the companion mechanic is that's probably the one they were talking about that was very ambitious, because that is extremely ambitious. Mutate's pretty ambitious too, but that one's totally new and unheard of. I mean, you're casting it from outside the game onto the battlefield. Pretty wild. All right, so our next one is Illuna, Apex of Wishes. A blue, red, a green, and 2 colorless. And Flying Trample, 6/6. Whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. Pretty wild. So the first non-land permanent you exile from the top of your library, you can put that either onto the battlefield directly or into your hand when you mutate this one. And Flying and Trample is some pretty good mutate abilities. So it's a little pricey on the mutate costs. It's 2 blue and then a hybrid red or green and 3 colorless. So a little bit pricey, but that's a pretty good amount of ability you get by mutating her. So she's a beast elemental dinosaur, legendary creature. I assume Illuna is a female name, so I keep calling her because I would assume it's a female. And the artwork could go either way. So, anyway, so that's the Illuna, Apex of Wishes. Then we got the Dorat, the perfect pet. Now this is an uncommon that's an extended card, because this is 382. So there's like probably 400 cards total, even though the set's only 274 cards. So they have a ton of extra cards or extra variant artworks and stuff like that. This set is just loaded down with this stuff. Alright, so this guy is 1 blue and 1 red. He's a 1/1, but flying with haste. And whenever he casts a non-creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on Sprite Dragon. So this is something that's a little bit weird about this set. As you notice, it's Dorat, the perfect pet, but then underneath you see Sprite Dragon. So, and down here, it calls itself Sprite Dragon in the text. So it's a little bit weird on some of these how they do that. In fact, you'll see when we get to the uncommon Godzilla. Hopefully I got it on here. Hopefully I saved that one. It does the same thing. It's got 2 different names, and it calls itself something different in the text box. So it's a little weird how they're doing that. And this fairy dragon is very cartoony, very very goofy. There's a couple little this guy's got a fish in his mouth in the background here. There's another dude flying upside down over here. Yeah, they're kind of goofy little guys, but a lot of really good abilities. I mean, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a 1/1 counter on him. He's got flying and haste. He's only a 2-drop in a blue-red deck. You could probably pop out 3 or 4 spells, and you could instantly have a hasting 4/4 flying over at your opponent. That's pretty crazy. So he might be the perfect pet, actually, especially for a blue-red Simic deck. All right, so moving on. Kenneth Rex, big old beastie. So he's a 9-drop, but he's an 11/11 trample, and you'll notice that they brought back cycling. This set has a lot of cycling cards. He's you can cycle him for 1 green and 1 colorless, and then you discard him and draw a card. But the coolest thing is they all have cycling abilities. When you cycle Kenneth Rex, put a trample counter on target creature you control. So even if you have no intentions of dropping a 9-drop 11/11, because the game's probably not going to go to turn 10, so you can actually drop them out there and then attack with them. When you cycle him, you can put a trample counter on one of your other creatures. So it's basically 2 mana cost trample counter. So pretty cool. I like that one because I like cards that you have the option. You have the early game option and you have the late game option. If you get later in the game, you can drop him, and he's an 11/11 trample. He's going to wreck a lot of stuff. But early game, it's a 2-drop trample counter on one of your creatures. So I like those. I like cards that do multiple abilities like that. That's why I really like the adventure cards in Throne of Eldraine. So, all right, next up, Umori the Collector. Now, he's 2 hybrid green or black and 2 colorless, and he's a 4/5. Which is actually just basic mana cost to power and toughness is pretty decent. And he's got Companion. Companion is each non-land card in your starting deck shares a card type. So you pretty much got to go tribal with this one. But if you've got a tribal deck, and this one does show the extra text, if this card is your chosen companion, you may cast it once from outside the game. So it's kind of like a commander, but I believe it's going to be in your sideboard, not in the command zone, so it's a little bit more of a surprise, I believe. I'm not sure if they're going to say that you have to announce your companion before the game starts or not. I'm not sure how that's going to unfold or what the rules errata is going to be around that, but I would imagine your deck just has to fall into the companion line, and then you can cast it from outside the game, although it does say chosen companion, so you may have to announce it beforehand. I'm not sure about that yet. These are just the cards they released today. They haven't released any rules or errata around them yet that I'm aware of. All right, as Umori the Collector enters the battlefield, choose a card type. Spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. This is a tribal card for any tribe. He's going to work in pretty much any tribe. He's an ooze himself, and he's a legendary creature, but he's going to make your whole deck pretty much tribal, which is pretty cool. And it's going to make everything cheaper, and he's only a 4-drop for a 4/5. So, pretty cool little card. Very colorful art, and I love the dual color cards when they do that with the hybrid mana. So it's like green border on one side and black border on the other. Really sharp looking card. And it's a rare. As you see, he's 231 and 274. So it's only a 274 card set, but there's almost 400 cards from what I've seen total with all the variants and all that. Watch, he's just going way overboard with all the variants on everything. It's ridiculous. All right, next up is a Huntmaster Liger. Excuse me. I like this guy. He's a 4-drop, 3/4, 1 white, 3 colorless. He is a cat, so he fits in your Johnny deck pretty well. His mutate is only 1 colorless and 2, so he's actually cheaper to mutate than he is to hardcast. Whenever this creature mutates, other creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of times this creature is mutated. So it looks like you can actually mutate them. I think the mutate's going to work kind of like equipping. I think you can mutate it anytime you've got the mana to spend it, from the looks of it. Looks like you can do that. I'm not sure what they're going to rule as far as the speed of the mutate ability. I'm hoping it's going to be instant speed, because that would make it really fun. If you could just, like, mid-battle mutate, you know, you get a 1/1 on top and a 3/4 on the bottom, and then mid-battle you can instantly mutate it in response to a block or something like that. I think that would be absolutely awesome. It'd probably be really broken, though, so I don't know that they're going to do that. They're probably going to have the mutate be sorcery speed, but as long as you got the mana, you can mutate multiple times from the looks of it, because the number of times this creature has mutated. So you can do it at least once a turn, but I'm thinking you can probably do it as many times as you want per turn. I imagine it'll be sorcery speed. Instant speed would just be broken and way too much fun. So we'll see what they say about that. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So it's a pump spell. Whenever you mutate them, other creatures you control all get pumped up to however many times he's mutated. So pretty cool card. Grim Dancer is our next one. He's a 2 black, 1 colorless, 3/3. Grim Dancer enters the battlefield with your choice of 2 different counters on it from among Menace, Death Touch, and Lifelink. So he's either a 3-drop, 3/3 with Death Touch and Lifelink, or Death Touch and Menace, or Menace and Lifelink. Pretty wild. And you can choose that when you cast them. So again, I like versatile cards like this. I really like cards that you got the option of doing what you need for the point in the game and the opponent that you're playing. I don't like cards that are very limited and you're stuck with cards in your hand that you just can't use against a certain opponent. So I really love how they're doing the counter mechanics in this set. I think it's a really cool idea. It is ambitious, but it's not. It's totally within the realm of possibility, as we see. It doesn't look like it's going to be too terribly confusing. It probably will be a little bit at first until people get kind of used to it. But, they're going to have the little punch-out counter cards in the packs. So, like Hour Devastation with the infect counters and all that stuff, or the -1/-1 counters and +1/+1 counters and stuff that they had the little punch cards for. Anyways, moving on. Zag Off Mamba. This is just bang for the buck card right here. He's a little nightmare snake. He's a 1-drop, 1/1, but whenever this creature mutates, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So you mutate another creature with this, because he doesn't have a mutate cost himself, so he can't actually mutate on his own, which is a little bit lame. I wish they'd have done like a 1 black, 1 colorless mutate for this guy or something, or just a 1 black mutate for him. But he's pretty much got a 2 toughness removal built into him when he mutates. So pretty neat. I like it. I think it's for 1 black mana, it's pretty affordable, and it's -2/-2 for 1 black mana. So, and he's a little 1/1 creature that you can start kind of getting some damage in early games. So again, versatile card. I really like versatile cards. Next up is Draneth Stinger. He's a 1 red, 1 colorless, 2/2. And this is another cycle card I want to show you. This is only a 1 colorless cycle, which is really cheap. And whenever you cycle another card, Draneth Stinger deals 1 damage to each opponent. So he doesn't do anything when you cycle him himself, but he's only a 1 colorless cycle. So real easy if you're mana locked or whatever, try and dig in for another land or something. But if you do put him into play, which is a 2-drop 2/2, which is easy to get out there, but then if you got a bunch of cycling cards, every time you cycle another card, he deals 1 damage to each opponent, not an opponent or opponent of your choice. It's each opponent. So if you're playing multiplayer, you ping everybody at the table every time you cycle another card. So that's pretty cool. I think he's pretty usable, and he's a common. So pretty cool that you're going to end up with a bunch of those when you buy a box. So cool card. Next up is Fully Grown. It's 1 green, 2 colorless, and its target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn, and put a trample counter on it. So the trample counter is going to stay. It's going to be permanent. So you're getting a permanent trample +3/+3 until end of turn. So it's like a giant strength that's got a little extra staying power because you get the trample counter permanently. So pretty cool. I do like the counter idea. I think it's going to turn out really nice. Next up is Polywog Symbiote. He's a 1 blue, 1 colorless, 1/3. Each creature spell you cast costs 1 less to cast if it has Mutate. So this really cheapens up all your Mutate stuff. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if it has Mutate, draw a card, then discard a card. So you get a card cycling, and you get cheaper Mutate costs. So, or your spells are 1 less if it has Mutate. So pretty cool little blue card, doing what blue does, helping you cycle through cards and making things a little cheaper. So, next up is Garuda, Doom of Depths. It's a 6-drop, but it's 2 hybrid blue or black and 4 colorless. It is companion. Your starting deck contains only cards with even converted mana cost. This is almost kind of like an unset kind of vibe to it with the companion. So you can't have 1-drops or 3-drops or 5-drops. You can only have even numbers. 2-drops, 4-drops, 6-drops, 8-drops, stuff like that. It's a 6/6. When Garuda enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Sounds like a negative, but then put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield under your control. So if your opponent mills a creature with a even converted mana cost, you get to steal the creature and put it on the battlefield under your control. Pretty fun. So, and he's a Demon Kraken. So, the Kraken. So 6-drop's a little bit pricey, but that's pretty. You're basically getting 2 creatures for the price of 1. And in black and blue, you're probably milling yourself half the time on purpose anyway. So, next up is Lucca the Spell Chaser. This guy's fun. This is possibly the most broken card I've seen so far in the set, and it's only a rare, which is nice. It's a 2 hybrid red or blue and 1 colorless for a 3/2. Decent. It's got Flash. Wow, that's definitely a good value. Companion. The companion is each non-land card in your starting deck has a different name. So this is going to see a lot of commander play. That is for sure. You'll see a lot of commander play going on with this one. Sorry about wiggling the camera there. It was getting a low battery notice. But when he comes into play, when Lucca the Spell Chaser enters the battlefield, if you cast it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So he's got a built-in fork on top of having the companion ability, the flash ability, and being a 3-drop 3/2 that works in red decks, blue decks, or Simic decks. Pretty awesome card. Pretty broken. I mean, that's a lot of bang for the buck with that one right there. Next up, Void Beckoner. He's an 8-drop, 2 black, 6 colorless, but it's an 8/8 Death Touch, and he does have cycling for 1 black and 2 colorless. When you cycle him, you put a Death Touch counter on target creature you control. So it's a 3-mana Death Touch or a late game 8-mana 8/8 Death Touch. Yeah, it's definitely, Ikoria, Lair of the Behemoths. Oh, and that's my last photo. So it looks like I didn't get the uncommon Godzilla. I have failed you miserably. I apologize. So there is an uncommon Godzilla card that has the dual name thing going on with it. So we'll see what happens with those. And it was a full art one. So it is one of the extended, not in the standard 274 cards. So I don't know if it's going to be in the collector's boosters or if it's going to be in the one of the decks. We don't know what kind of decks they're going to come out with because they said they're not going to do Planeswalker decks, I believe. However, they've got 2 Planeswalkers, including a new Planeswalker. So they've got to be doing something with the Planeswalkers with some kind of pre-con deck because there's so many cards above the 274 cards. So I expect to see something. I know we're getting the 5 commander decks, but I don't think they're going to use the Planeswalkers or the commanders. I think all the multicolored cards I showed you earlier in the video are going to be the commander cards. And then we've got the companion cards too, which may end up being commanders. So I'm not sure. We'll have to see what unfolds with it, but there's a lot of really cool cards, and the mechanics are as good as I could have possibly imagined them. I don't think I could have come up with a better way of using the mechanics than what they did. You know, I was really unsure what they were going to do with that mutate thing, but it's actually really cool. Now, yes, you are turning 2 creatures into 1, but you just kind of look at it as, what was that mechanic where you could cast the creature and kind of use it as an enchantment a couple sets back? I don't know. It's late. So, and this is a really long video. I want to wrap it up. So, yeah, hopefully you guys like the video. Let me know what you think of some of these cards, and if you've seen some other card spoilers that you really like. These were kind of the ones that I wanted to show because I thought there was a good versatile grouping of them without repeating too much of the same stuff. Wanted to kind of show you all the new mechanics plus the cycling mechanic, and show you some of the different counter cards and how they work, and some of the different mutate cards, and then some of the different companion cards. So, and of course, had to start off with Godzilla because it's Godzilla. So, anyways, hope you guys liked the video. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. There's probably some suggestions up here in the corners. I can't even get my hands out there. There we go. There we go. Up in the corners there. So hopefully you'll check out a couple more videos while you're here, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye.